I have a dream, and the same dream as you. I'd love to get a TV show one day. But if that doesn't happen, I still would be doing what I'm doing. I'd still be just making stuff with my mates. I'd still be trying new things and new platforms. And like, I love the environment of being on a film set. But I also love the environment of writing, and I love the environment of editing. So if I need to keep making stuff and someone might notice me down the track, amazing. But if they don't, then I'm probably still pretty happy.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Today's guest is humble, fun, impressive, and a calm presence. Plus, he's very well spoken and a great conversationalist. I love Luke's mentality, outlook, and the way he goes about life, in particular about focusing on the now, enjoying the process, plus the concept of the right fit. It's quite contagious. Anyway, enjoy this all-rounded fun chat sprinkled with a lot of empowerment. Today's guest, Luke Goodall, is an actor, director, producer, and screenwriter. The sought-after comedy creator is known for his razor-sharp social satire. He's also one half of the comedy duo Goodall and Gallagher, whose content has amassed over 400 million views and has even been shared on Instagram by basketball legend Shaquille O'Neal. During his time in Ron Howard's accelerator Imagine Impact, he was hailed as some of the best writers in Australia. Luke began his career as the digital content producer on Foxtel's Wentworth and went on to create successful campaigns for brands such as Disney, Carlton Draught, and Knobby underwear. In 2022, Luke became the entertainment producer at Fox Footy alongside collaborator Max Price. Luke's also just released his comedy series The Followers. The Followers is a true crime parody about a wellness cult, and it is absolutely hilarious. You can check it out on their YouTube channel at Goodall and Gallagher, and the links are in the episode notes. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about very impressive, validation and moving forward, making stuff, doing what you love, how a no can actually be a good thing, meeting Ron Howard, the right fit, collaboration, fun, and Goodall and Gallagher. Before we get into this chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out every Monday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, with the video to follow the following day. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's epic episode. Ready to rumble?
Let's do it.
Can you tell me about Mr. Impressive?
Very impressive. So I started...
Very. It's not Mr. Impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mr. Impressive, very impressive. His first name is Very. His last name is Impressive.
Amazing.
He is very impressive. So when I moved to Melbourne from Colac, I got a job at a Boost Juice bar.
Yep.
Right in Flinders Street Station. And he was probably a customer. He would come in every day and get his... what was it? It was like a choc raspberry kind of thing, and he loved it.
Bizarre.
And he always had these interesting stories. Just to paint a picture of very impressive, he's like 6'4", 6'5", and he calls himself Melbourne's most colourful man. So he's tattooed, he's colourful, he wears regalia, he's got a different mohawk every day, and he's just a really interesting
different mohawk, that's a lot of effort.
A lot of colour.
Did he have a lot of hair?
He did. I'm not sure if he still does. It's a few years late. And he always had these interesting stories. So me and a friend of mine, Holly Fiver, who was making documentaries at the time and still is and killing it, nice. We were like, we should follow Very around for a day and just see what we get. And that day we ended up in Chapel Street. I think we found a toilet and he smashed it on the road, and then we ran into John Safran at an art exhibition, and it was this and Holly and I kind of left that night being like, I think this might be an interesting story to tell.
And he was okay with you following him at that stage, or were you kind of like detectives?
He loved it.
Oh.
The idea of, Harry, can we follow you around for a day? He could not have been more excited.
Oh,
and that day turned into maybe 3 years of on and off filming.
No way.
Yeah. And culminating in a trip to New Zealand to interview his family.
And what was his family like?
They're not impressed. Very upper class family in New Zealand. I think they might have ran a local airport or had like some kind of plane business. And very...
Didn't want to go into the family business?
Yeah, he flied a different plane himself. He was a very interesting dude, and he was an artist. So we'd go and film him making art in like some of the laneways in Melbourne and all that. So we went to New Zealand, and part of the reason was to meet his mother, to find out a bit about, what do they think and the backstory about him. And also he was actually going to, at the moment, his name was very Tony Martin impressive. So Tony Martin's his actual name.
Oh.
That he had changed by default.
Yeah.
And he was going to take out Tony Martin completely. So that was the reason we'll go. It was going to be the ending of our film. He was going to just be very impressive. He was going to take out Tony Martin.
Oh, that's magical.
So we drive to Blenheim from Christchurch, and we've got him in the back of our Subaru, and we're just having the best time. And we meet his mum, and she was very honest about the fact that he's not impressive all the time, and the fact that he's a bit too much, and the fact that maybe all very, very wanted to do was be loved and find a partner. Yeah. But because he's so bright and colourful, that's a bit of a put off to some people.
Yeah.
And his mother would tell you that, maybe that's why that he hasn't found his love yet. And it was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, interesting, strong.
Yeah.
Mom's like, you're never going to be loved.
It pretty much. We actually cut out a bit of the doco that was like, that was a bit too much. She went hard.
Can you? It's not like she's just talking to a loved one. She's talking to people that she's never met and banging the shit out of her son on camera.
Absolutely. Could not believe we got that interview. But then we go down, we drive 4 hours out to a place called Greymouth on the west coast of New Zealand. This is where he's going to change his name. This is their ending.
Yep.
And I go in. We couldn't take cameras in there because it's like a government building.
Huh.
But I'm with him in there as emotional support, and he goes to the counter and he's talking through it. And then the person behind the counter goes, you can't do that here. You do that on an online form. And I was just like, we've just travelled to another country to film this moment, and we could have done it in North Melbourne on the internet.
Oh my goodness.
And it was just a very, very impressive thing to happen.
Well, it just sounds kind of like the journey of an artist as well.
Absolutely.
These things happen all the time.
Yep.
Did you embrace it, or you had a good laugh? What was going on?
So, I got back into the car. I was like, and told the film crew what's happening, and he did not have a good laugh about it. But I think
he didn't.
No, he wasn't very happy, as you could understand. This was I think mainly symbolically because he wanted to change the name so much and get that out of his official name. So I think he was a bit annoyed about that. But I'm sure he got it done when he got home and put on Internet Explorer and fired it up.
To me, based on what you said, that's an even better ending to describe this.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Did you include that bit?
We actually didn't include that bit in the documentary. And in hindsight, I'm like, that's just the funniest, perfect ending.
Can you rechange it? And
to be honest, I actually don't have the hard drive with all the footage. I need to talk to Holly because there was literally there's a terabyte of footage of following this gentleman.
3 years.
Yeah, and we only the short film was like 8 minutes.
That is crazy.
There's a feature film in there somewhere for sure. I just need to find the hard drive and crack it open.
Would you ever get it out there? Because you were at the it
premiered. So it premiered at the St Kilda Film Festival at the Astor, and Very came along. So we call him Very. Yep. Very came along, and that was his first time seeing it.
Oh wow!
And it was it was like a short film night, and it was absolutely packed. And our film starts playing. And then his mum's on camera talking, and then he in the audience starts rebutting things that she's saying. So now it's like a 4D experience when everyone's like, who is that? Who's talking? And they look around, that makes a lot of sense.
That a complicated relationship, it sounds like.
And he's like, I didn't say that. And it was quite, I'm like, Very, could you just, but it kind of added to the experience.
Oh, that's
so it's actually not online. I should probably put it up online somewhere.
I think you have to.
It's a beautiful story, and he's a beautiful man, and I still talk to him.
Oh, nice.
He's a lovely, lovely dude, and I hope he finds the love that he's always yearned
Well, if
for.
you're out there, go and find him. Is he like very impressive on Instagram, or
he doesn't have Instagram? No. He might have 2 or 3 Facebook accounts that he's locked out of. But
classic Very.
Yeah, you will see him on a tram in North Melbourne, and he'll be the most colourful man on that tram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking for love. That whole journey. Why the 3 years? Was there just so much? Was this also the first thing that you?
Yeah. This was the first kind of major project I did outside of uni, and it was kind of my film school in a way. Like, so Holly, who I made it with, she'd already ran through Swinburne, and done a few documentaries, quite successful. So I learnt so much from her. I'd never picked up a camera before until that.
Oh, wow.
Movie, and then she was filming. I'm like, I'll grab the camera, and it was a Canon 7D for all the camera nuts out there, which is like a DSLR. And I started learning, that, and over time, I kind of started figuring out how to direct, how to edit, how to shoot.
Oh, all of that,
just through this film that never ended. Maybe I didn't want to finish it because I wanted to keep
the special moment.
Keep it going. But I feel like we actually did have a lot of trouble figuring out the story. We went through a few different editors because I don't think Holly and I really grasped the enormity of all the footage and how to compact it into a short film. So we overshot completely. And it was just a matter of, what is this story about? There are so many angles we could go. We could make it funny. We could make it sad. We could make it, like, there were so many different ways because we had so much footage. And we eventually, I think the one we settled on was a really human story about a guy looking for love that was kind of pushing people away.
I think you can just upload it how it is, but you have to add in that ending. But if you've got everything there, like even on Facebook or something or YouTube, I'm sure like the ABC would be interested in something like that.
Hopefully, if you're listening, ABC, come and check it out.
I really like that, seeing the human side. That's really fascinating. And what was the feeling like? So you've got it out there. Was this like through uni? What were you thinking afterwards?
So it was, the thing is, right, I've always wanted to do comedy, and I've always written comedy, and over those 3 years I started making comedy. So by the time that this documentary was out, I was kind of like, cool, that was fun. But I kind of want to make narrative comedy now. So it was almost starting from scratch again, trying to figure out, well, how do I do that? It's a different form. It's a very different thing to documentary. Although my directing style has probably always been influenced by documentary. It's always like, get in a room and then, cool, well, let's not get too precise of where the camera is. Let's get in and be like, well, we can maybe shoot it like this, a bit looser. So I've kind of always took those lessons that I learned from that documentary in my directing style. But from a comedy perspective, I think we just pivoted, and me and another mate who I was living with at the time, Lockie Harris, we just started making like short films, and we actually got into a competition called the MTV 180 Project.
Ah, yes.
Which it couldn't have been any more different to very impressive. It was a teaser trailer. The competition was you had to make a teaser trailer for a film.
Yep.
And ours was, what if there was a prohibition of alcohol in Melbourne in the modern day?
Interesting.
And it was it's such a great experience making like our first kind of narrative comedy, and we actually got selected into the competition, which was lovely. And that was kind of the first time I was like, oh, okay, cool. So we made something, people are responding to it. Maybe I could continue doing this, maybe not.
So awesome.
Yeah, so that was really cool.
And in terms from the validation, because that's kind of been a bit of my journey as well, it just takes someone to say, this is pretty good. And then you're like, oh, yes, I can keep on going, because it is very hard, as you know.
Yeah.
So what was that like moment when you got that validation? I think I saw that you were flown to Sydney.
That's it.
You've shown it. Did you have like things on the back burner? Was there a plan B?
It was, here's the thing. At that, I was quite young, so I was still only a few years out of high school, probably just finished uni. I was still very naive about like, oh, cool, we got into this competition. When do I get a TV show?
Yeah, I'm still like that.
Yeah, I'm like, where's this checkbook? And I was just very naive that it would all happen so easily.
Yep.
And then I suppose you get in the competition and then that was it. And I was like, oh, it was fun. That was a great weekend. And you're like, oh, now I've got to back it up and make something else. And the next thing we made was that competition's next year.
Oh, really?
And we actually got into the finals for that again because like we knew the formula. We're like, we can do this. Didn't get the TV show out of it again. But that was actually starring Sam Peterson, our mutual friend. Yeah.
Confessions, everyone. It's the funniest podcast in Australia.
A fantastic podcast. So there was a few like great validations of like, cool, we got into St Kilda. We found a few things where we got selected. And then nothing happened. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So you kind of only as what would you say? Like only as popular as your latest thing. So you just gotta keep making stuff to get out there. And if something doesn't get you to where you need to be, then make something else.
See, that is fantastic advice. And that's very hard because sometimes, with me, for example, I make something, I want the TV show. And then if you don't get it, and I know there was an example which we'll talk about, maybe it was Ron Howard, and you like, okay, I put all my eggs in one basket. Why has nothing happened? And it can be, especially speaking to a lot of people on this podcast, it can be really like daunting and frustrating, and it can even be quite challenging to go, what's the next thing I have to do? Because it's not like nothing's kind of set in stone. You don't know. No one owes you anything. And that has been a journey for me. It's been a journey for like everyone on this podcast. How have you coped with that?
It's a great question. And I probably haven't really even thought about it until you've asked. Maybe.
That's good.
Yeah. I think here's the thing, right? I have a dream, and the same dream as you. I'd love to get a TV show one day. But if that doesn't happen, I still would be doing what I'm doing. I'd still be just making stuff with my mates. I'd still be trying new things and new platforms. And like, I love the environment of being on a film set. I also love the environment of writing, and I love the environment of editing. So if I need to keep making stuff and someone might notice me down the track, amazing. But if they don't, then I'm probably still pretty happy.
Okay, that's what everyone needs. I need a bit of that. Everyone needs a bit of that. I had, I don't know what the timing will be like, but I had Nolan North on this podcast.
Yep.
And he is the top voiceover guy. He does all the video games. He's done a lot. He's also done on screen. And he was saying, I asked him about like success and failure, and he says he doesn't even know what failure means because to him, the success is just doing it. Whether something happens or not, he's at least done it, and he's proud of that. And that's kind of the mentality I think you need to be successful, because at the end of the day, you might not get you will, but you might not get a TV show. You might not get all of these things. But if you're actually putting your hand up, doing the work, playing with your mates, having fun and learning, that's success in my mind.
I couldn't agree more. It's like you just have to keep doing what you love. And I suppose, we're very fortunate enough to be able to kind of, what is it? Friday morning. Yeah. A lot of people are at work right now. I used to despise my retail jobs.
Yep.
And I'm so blessed that I get to do this. This is great.
You're very humble, and I love that. I can't go back to accounting. That's what I know for sure. So has that always been the mindset for you? Just, you mentioned about just keep on making stuff happen. Is, you make something, do you enjoy it, and then it's on to the next one?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, I think the mantra that I'm kind of running with at the moment is all I need is one yes, or the right yes.
Yes.
Because in this industry, in film, TV, whatever it is, you're going to get no's every day. Like a no could be, a comment on a video that someone hates it. A no could be an application that gets denied. A no could be a pitch that doesn't work. And I'm very aware of there's going to be more no. There's going to be 99% more no's than yeses. But as soon as you get the right yes, it makes all those no's disappear. So we're just kind of fishing around for the right yes.
Very interesting. It's like, I've heard that 100 times. Actors get rejected a gazillion times, and they might get the one. J.K. Rowling just springs to mind. How many times did she get rejected writing her book, and then she actually gets an avenue out there? And even like with like Curb Your Enthusiasm, I know that Larry, it's the greatest show. Absolutely. Like, yes, Larry had the backing of Seinfeld, but a lot of networks would not want a show like that. And it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means it's not right for them.
Absolutely.
And that's also been very interesting. I was telling you, this one script that I've had interest in, which we might dive into for a bit. And when I was doing some of the other writing competitions, there was just like, this is good, or other people, actually the feedback had been very strong on this one. But then there was someone that actually said, you know what, I can see this in the TV show, I can make this with you. And you're like, whoa. Whereas if I sent it to another network, it wouldn't be right for them. And that's always...
Yeah, and you can't get deflated by that.
Yeah.
Like, and the no's, you're almost like, it's not that you want to prove people wrong, because sometimes like Breaking Bad probably wasn't a good fit on the Fox network and needed to go to AMC, and that was like, they pitched that around everywhere and it didn't work. And it may have been a completely different show that wouldn't have worked if it didn't end up in the right hands. So you kind of got to, sometimes it's a blessing to, have a no from someone to be like, you know what? Yeah. Because the other thing is chasing up a lot of these meetings and pitches takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And you might write an email and then a week back you get another one, and then you try and set up a Zoom, and then everyone's very busy. Everyone's working a lot of stuff. So a quick no is sometimes the best thing.
Agreed. And I'd love to know, we spoke before we started, you said sometimes a no is a thank fuck. And there was, I think you had an example. Is there anything that springs to mind?
Yeah, well, okay, so it was, so I make a lot of content under Goodall Gallagher with my mate Mark, and we had this concept called Robots Inc., which is a workplace comedy set in the future.
Cool.
About basically that human flaws will inevitably make flawed robots. So we're destined to fail with AI. And it was such a fun idea. And we entered it into a competition with a local company that we're going to potentially make 4 shows as pilots. And
Wait, you had 4 pilots, or they had?
No, so they were going to make four pilots out of the application, and we worked so hard in this application, and we really thought we were in with a shot. Obviously, we got rejected, and it was like, bugger. That was like, we could have thought that was our chance, and we didn't get it, and that idea is done. And then, but we were like, no, we backed this idea. It maybe wasn't right for this.
Yep.
And then we submitted it into this thing called Imagine Impact, which was Ron Howard's writing accelerator.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So he does a writing accelerator where he gets 10 groups and they write a pilot or a movie under his Imagine Entertainment company, and they were bringing it to Australia for the first time. And our series that got rejected from this local competition got selected for Ron Howard.
You should email them and be like, just casually
exactly.
Ron Howard.
Just, me and Ronnie Boy. And it was just such in hindsight being like, oh wow, that, we were kind of annoyed that we didn't get, well, not annoyed, but like, it's always a little bit deflating that we didn't get into that thing. But like, if we had, we wouldn't have got this amazing opportunity. Yeah. So it was just right place, right time, and the right fit as well, I think is very, very important.
Agreed. I love this right fit concept because, as we said, like Curb couldn't have been made by Nickelodeon.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I'd love to know a bit more about that right fit, because that would have happened along the way in your journey as well. Even just with the people you work with, like Mark, for example, that's something that's been going for a while, the right fit for you guys. Yeah,
that's a really good point. It is, you got to kind of find your people that you love spending time with.
Yeah.
It is a relationship in a way. Like Mark and I kind of joke that he has a fiance, but I'm his work partner.
His work wife.
Yeah, I'm basically his work wife. And you need to find people that you get along with, that you respect, that you trust, and then that you can also, I suppose connect with in a way that you want to do the same thing. You want to find the right people around you.
Like you're on the same page.
On the same page, yeah. And I've got that with Mark, and I also have that with my other collaborator, Max Price, who I do a bunch of stuff with. So I'm actually, I do very little by myself. I love collaborating with people. I love the creativity of two minds coming together. And I'm lucky enough that I've got kind of 2 avenues there to bounce off people.
That's so awesome. I used to be a guy that didn't like collaborating, like maybe
Really?
from the accounting side, probably because I hated it. But now that I'm doing this, even if I just have friends and I'm getting them to act out my scripts, I love this, obviously, this is collaboration. But just with the script, bouncing ideas, like I've had probably like at least 10 times friends who aren't in the industry And I like that they're not in the industry.
Yeah.
And they'll sit down and we'll read out scenes and they'll give me like feedback and we'll discuss. And that's like the greatest feeling.
Yeah. And they're the best people to get feedback from because they're not going to ask you about the 3-act structure. They're not going to be like, well, that's not how you.
What are their needs and wants?
Yeah, the director wouldn't want that in the script. No, they just want
Cost
it.
a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. You just want a visceral, like, do you like it or not?
Yeah.
Did you write your script by yourself or?
I've written all of my scripts by myself, but I've had friends help.
Yeah.
I had a previous writing partner who was lovely.
Yeah.
And we weren't quite on the same page and he's gone into another avenue, but he was helping me with the one that I could probably do here.
Yeah, great.
And that was a lot of fun at that stage.
Yeah, how did it work? Because I'm always interested in how people write together. Because some people writing together is they do a draft and send it, and then someone does a draft. I don't see that as writing together, although that is a key facet of the writing process. But did you sit down in the room and riff on ideas, and how did it actually kind of come together?
So, brilliant question. I haven't quite thought about this, but I'm jealous of you, and I'll tell you, and I'll answer your question in a sec. I've always wanted, like, that Hamish and Andy and work together.
Absolutely.
And I have not found that. You've got it, and I'm very proud of you. It's positive
I've got 2
jealousy.
of them.
You got 2 of them. And I know
of them.
you've also got some actor buddies, Susie, who I did improv with.
Oh, did you? Yeah,
And
Susie Kaz, phenomenal.
I've never been more impressed in my life, and
Yeah.
I should tell her that. And this guy, lovely, was still good friends, but he didn't actually know writing. So a lot of it was me teaching him how to write, which was good for me because, if you can teach, you can do, hopefully. So I'm just trying to think. I'd already planned this show. I already knew all the characters and stuff. So it'd already been done. And then he came in and we'd spend like weekends and discuss things, go over them.
Right.
And
It's always a good excuse to go on a weekend to the country or the beach. We're going to go on a riding trip.
it's work.
Just go get drunk. It's great.
Exactly. Exactly. And a lot of it was just like pitching ideas. Like it was pretty well developed before and just like, this could be funny or how's this? But and the reason it didn't work is because I did like 90% of the writing.
Yep.
And it would be at times, I've written this, now you do this. And that wasn't fun.
Yeah.
But when we're at certain stages working together, sitting in the room, these are the ideas, that is the best. But I'd love to be able to sit in a room and just, write it together. So I'd love to know how you kind of work with Mark.
Yeah. With Mark, I mean, there's a few different things because we do a lot of short form content.
Yeah.
And we've got our new series, The Followers, out on YouTube at the moment, which was kind of
very good.
Oh, thank you. We kind of wrote that a lot over Zoom because it was like during a COVID era.
Yeah.
So that was like, and we actually got quite used to just sitting on a phone and doing it, and we could kind of be pretty good at that. When we're trying to talk big picture stuff, we'd love to get together, but for nitty gritty stuff, we actually use either Write a Duet, which is a software where you can do scripts, kind of like Google Drive, where you can write at the same time. Final Draft does have the capabilities, but it's actually very clunky.
I use Final Draft, but I have no idea how to actually use it. I just know the bare. Yeah.
So Final Draft is great for an individual writer. It's got everything you need. But when you want to collaborate, it's a little clunky and a little laggy. So we did a bit of writing like that. But what we would sit in a room together and we'd talk stuff. We'd be, and then we kind of go off and start writing. The thing with Mark and I, we know the strengths of each other.
I was just about to.
Mark's great at getting a first draft out or a first page out. He's just like, his brain works like that. He just needs to get stuff out. And then I go through and I start tinkering. We might talk about something and he just bashes something out and I'm like, cool. And then I go through and I'm like condensing something or throwing a different joke in there. And then he goes, by the time he's done a draft of something, he's ready to go up the top and then he kind of comes and follows me. And we're on the phone and we're talking about it the whole way. And that's always, a kind of a pretty fun experience.
No, I think that's, now my girlfriend has read all of my scripts.
Yep.
And I figured out, because it's a very important thing, you figured out each other's strengths. So I think that's really important. You might be working with the best person, but if you if you don't know each other's strengths and weaknesses, it's pretty hard. And what I've realized is also through the previous guy and also my girlfriend, I have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Once I've talked about it, I can go bam, 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 and write it. But if it's all in my head or I jot down points, it's not as clear. It becomes so much clearer. And I had someone on my podcast, he does everything. he actually said in America you can hire someone for like $15 or $20 an hour, and they don't even need to be in the industry. It might be like an intern or whatever it is, where you speak at them your ideas.
And they're describing.
And they might also ask you questions. And it's just someone, because some people think that way like me. And I don't know too many people like that. Like I actually, for everything, I have to talk about it. And I found it such a wild concept that you could actually hire someone to do that.
That's great, because so many times when you are like riffing, you're like, oh, what was that funny thing we've said before? And then it's gone.
Yeah.
And then you can go to the laptop and be like, oh, actually, this is it. Oh, it's not funny. That wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's so interesting, different styles. So,
but I'll tell you what, it did definitely take a while for Mark and I to kind of get in a sync. Like, because so we met each other working at Apple. This was after my Boost Juice days, and we met at Apple. And you mentioned before about finding the right fit. I think for a few years I was probably looking for someone to collaborate with. Like I had written my own things, but never really went out and made anything other than those things that we talked about earlier. So I was kind of looking for someone to kind of make stuff with.
Yep.
And at the start, him and I, we knew that there was something there, but we were probably wanting to do different things and different styles of comedy. And then like we'd almost, with Goodall and Gallagher early on, we'd almost do, cool, well, this is a Mark idea and this is a Luke idea. And it was just a bit messy early on because the styles were so different.
Yeah.
But I think we had to go through that
to figure out
like, oh, well, what works about your style and my style together? And that becomes something new. And that become this, we kind of branded it high concept, lowbrow comedy, which is like kind of, stuff that's maybe involved in like, we love tech, we love social media, and we kind of love painting the picture of how humans can't really adapt to using these technologies very well. And that's kind of where we started clicking like, oh, cool, we both really are invested in this area. And we started making stuff that was a bit more in sync. And then we've kind of just over time honed that.
That's very impressive, but also good on you guys because, in this magical world, we think if we meet someone, it just has to be a match straight away. But you actually, it's like a traditional boyfriend girlfriend. You worked at the relationship and you made it work. Because a lot of people, especially me, you could have just said, it's not really working, even though it was working, but it wasn't quite what it is now. And I think that's credit to you because you saw something there. And you're like, you know what, we can actually build this together.
Yeah, it took a very long time. Yeah.
It's so interesting because I don't know where you were with this. As I said, I always wanted like to be that Hamish and Andy person, and I couldn't find. I've collaborated with people and it's gone really well, but it's never been someone I want to do like most of my things with. All beautiful relationships, but not. It's just like for that project you're great, but I don't think I'd get you for this project in that same capacity. And it's always been this like struggle where I'm like, I need to find someone. But then for me, it made me work on the things that I suck at besides editing. I hate editing. You said you like editing. I don't know how to do it. That's been my big thing that's stopping me going forward. I don't know how you do it, but you've seemed to like balance each other out in that sense. And also, why do you like editing? Please tell me.
I see editing as the third time you write the thing. So like you write the thing in when you write it on a script, and you kind of rewrite it when you're shooting it because, you might direct it a little differently. You might explore it. And then in the edit, you're kind of like trying to make it better again. So it's like it's a third opportunity to make this thing good. And I love the challenge of, cutting around my bad acting for one, and also trying to make something funnier. And like, with the followers, we were adding graphics and jokes and all sorts of stuff like the day we were handing it in.
Oh, isn't that awesome?
Yeah, so another thing about Mark and I's relationship, I'm kind of take the lead on the producing stuff, and he takes the lead on graphics, visual stuff, color grading, all the nitty gritty stuff. So I do the picture editing, which I enjoy, and then he goes and puts logos and graphics. And
so he's very talented.
Yeah, he's a very talented man. He does animation as well, and it's great for me to be able to write something. And I'm like, well, I can't achieve that, but he can.
But that's nice. You can kind of like balance each other out. Like with the previous. I wouldn't call him a writer, but when he was a writer, because he doesn't do writing anymore, we had also a lot of the same strengths. So that's also why it didn't quite, and we couldn't edit. So we filmed like 10 comedy skits.
Yep.
Holy crap, they're bad.
Love to see them.
Oh, they're so bad, but we don't know how to edit. It was literally just filmed off a camera and then just cut along. You know better than anyone. They're so bad. And then there's just even a little bit of noise. Like, we do not know how to edit. I have no ability at this stage, and I was like, I might just have to hire someone to do this.
Yeah, well, let me know.
Okay, we're putting it out there as
we're
well.
We're gonna whip them into shape. What did you feel like? Okay, you did these 10 things. Maybe you didn't edit them and release them, but how much did you learn from creating that batch?
Huge. Just even the small things, even just how to like direct. You know, people think you just have a camera, for example. I know you do directing, but like, how do you work with people? And we get friends, for example, or some actually improv people. Yeah. And how do you actually work in a relationship where does someone feel comfortable doing it? Not that it was anything like graphic or violent, but just working with people so they feel comfortable. And also, like, you know, we've had such high level actors, and this always scared me. I'm no actor by any means, but I can definitely do comedy stuff to a degree.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're going on a set for the first time and they might know one person, if not anyone. And that's pretty, like, especially when you like revealing aspects of yourself through your creative stuff, like that can be really tough. And one of the things, there's probably 100 things, is just how do I create an environment where people feel comfortable to actually go out and do something.
Well, you've done a lot of improv, which is the most like bearing your soul part of the art form you can do. That is literally like, here's my subconscious right now.
Yeah,
I've never tried improv.
I reckon you'd really like it.
Would I? I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
You say some fuck stuff, I can tell you that.
It's true. Yeah. I'm an asshole.
Not you, I mean everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. We don't do too much improv on our sets, though. But maybe, I don't know.
That's because the script's so good.
Well, I appreciate that. That's hilarious. But they're not.
We'll agree to disagree. But I also want to go back. I think you did something called Blue Tack, which was an environment where you're collaborating with other people.
Yes.
And it fizzled out we'll find out in a reason.
Yep.
But I'll just preface this with, we had Auntie Donna, we've had everyone, the three main guys, there's 6 of them on Auntie Donna's, and there's a whole team. And they had a 4th member that was the face of it.
The 4th Beatle.
The 4th Beatle. And very long story short, they were all on the same page, and he kind of had a different direction. He wanted to do other stuff, and that impacted, they've all said this, people listen to them. That impacted the relationship because they all weren't on the same page. The 3 wanted to go a certain way and give a certain amount, and that guy couldn't or didn't want to, it doesn't matter. But that impacted their creativity because they were trying to like, I've forgotten what the word is, but they were just trying to like accommodate for someone that didn't really want to be there.
Yeah.
And that impacted their creativity and also outside the craft. And so I'm wondering with Blue Tack, although it sounds really interesting, how did that work when you're all collaborating and
Yeah, great. So Blue Tack Studios.
Yep.
First off, I'm glad we never got anywhere because we probably would have been sued for the name. I don't think we didn't own the rights to it.
That's hilarious.
So that was a bunch of dudes that I love very much, good friends, but everyone was trying to do something a little different. So Mark was involved. It was Mark, myself, and a few others. We all met at Apple, and we all started making things together. But so there was comedy, there was documentaries, there was music videos, and we're essentially like trying to become a production company, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yep.
It's like a restaurant that serves Indian, Italian, and fish and chips. And then no one's going to go there because the place next door just sells fish and chips, and they nailed it. And it got to a point where no one's watching anything we do because it's someone might have liked the comedy skit, but they're not going to come in and watch the punk rock music video, and they're not going to care about the documentary. So there was just too much going on, and we were trying to build this brand that was trying to do too much, and then eventually got to the point where Mark and I were like, well, we want to make a TV show. We want to do comedy. We want to do online stuff. This was at the time where, we were watching a lot of YouTube comedians and really enjoying what was there. And we're like, well, we should just go out and do our own thing and that's where the Goodall and Gallagher kind of duo was born from that. And it kind of spread from there. And we still worked with a few of those people that we were working with the Blue Tack, and we still try and collaborate today.
That's awesome.
But and the thing is, everyone's gone off and done their own thing in their own right, quite successfully. So it's been cool that once we kind of got out of that, those pathways didn't close, and everyone's still doing
so it's still
cool
like
shit.
this positive environment. You just went your separate ways, and people shined in their own right.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
which was great. Yeah.
What were you thinking at the time when, because especially when I was first starting, everyone needs to be on the same page. Why don't you get there? Even though it's all me, it's not them. In those environments where people are doing different things, it could kind of take away, well, when I've been in those environments, it would kind of take away from what I thought I wanted to do in my art, because I was trying to I'm not saying that this by any means, trying to please or trying to get everyone on the same page. Did you have anything like that, or you're always pretty I want to go this way, and if they want to do what I'm doing, then they can?
Yeah, it's I always knew what I wanted to do eventually.
Yeah.
But I also was at a point in my early in my career that I was happy just to be on any set whatsoever, and I was happy to do any role whatsoever. So I was holding a boom, I was assistant directing, I was producing, got into producing, and kind of through just saying yes to everything with Blue Tack Studios and anyone else that was kind of needing a hand, I kind of did my own film school outside of uni, and like I said, it was very impressive, just learnt on the trade. So now I feel like I can, as a director and a producer, I'm not the best cameraman or the best lighting guy, but I know it just enough that I can have a conversation with someone who's better at those roles and explain well, I'd do it. Could you try it like this or try it like that, or just throw the term aperture out there every now and then, and they'll know you kind of know what you're talking about. So,
that's so good.
It was actually a really interesting time where I was happy to kind of try whatever, and then eventually be like, cool, now I can switch the gear into my own stuff, and started saying no to those other jobs eventually.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you. That's awesome to be able to learn all these different things and absorb it. I remember the first set I was on, which is ridiculous. I was on a set only for diversity reasons. Can you imagine me?
Okay.
Yeah, I know. It was a Chinese film, and it was about Chinese relations with Australians. And they're like, we need white guys. I'm like, wow.
That's the first time in cinema history that's ever been said. We need white guys.
I know. I was just... I've got to swallow my face. I never thought that would happen. And they're like, one of my friends was one of the actors. He was there were 3 white guys. I was one of them.
Yeah.
And I could not believe he's like, you're in this space. Do you mind doing it? And I was like the lead of the extras. And I had so much screen time just because I was white. And I was so much taller because everyone was so small. Yeah. So I would have been like, I actually haven't seen it. But there was one shot with me in the middle and the cast members are to the side of me. And it's just me like, what am I doing here?
Just in the way. I love that. That's so funny.
But it was so interesting just to see how everything works. It's such a tight-knit. And I know that you've had experiences along the way, which has obviously helped you for what you're doing now. And even with the followers, it looked like quite the production as well. Yeah,
well, I mean, I always like what I said earlier, I was waiting for something to happen for so long, and now things are starting to happen, which is fantastic. But I look back at all the things we've done, I'm like, oh, actually, I was learning so many different skills that have helped, all the new projects I'm coming out, I can kind of, feel confident in a few different areas, which is great.
That you have such a great mindset on this. This is very empowering.
I appreciate that.
Going back to the Ron Howard, so that's also another, we've spoken about your journey and how, it's kind of been a journey of confidence and validation along the way. And then to have someone like Ron Howard, you talk with him.
Crazy.
Yeah, tell me more about that. So, he's very...
So we got accepted into this writing accelerator. We got told we were going to get in, but they needed to see more material. So we'd fill out the application form, which, by the way, was the best application form I've ever put in. It's like it really asked the specific questions that makes you really think about your idea.
Oh, so even it was just good for you.
Yeah, it was just a great exercise. And but even there was questions about what's the poster look like? And that's stuff that, because this is an American company, obviously it's a business. Yeah. It's show business. And they come from the fact of we're in show business to make money and you need to market films. And it's something that probably here marketing and distribution is kind of down the end of the budget, really small and already been chewed up. Yeah. Exactly. So it was really interesting to kind of think of it in that way. And anyway, so we filled out this application and we got shortlisted. And they were like, yeah, cool. So we need to see, have you got a script? And we didn't have a script. We had a couplet-page Bible, which is essentially the theme of the show, the character outlines. And then they said, do you have a script or a season outline? And we didn't. And we said, yeah, we do.
I love
Yeah,
it.
of course we do.
Yeah.
Knowing that,
10.
of course, yeah, we got 10 episode outline for sure, and knowing that they were going to sleep in America, and we had a whole day to kind of bash some stuff out. So Mark and I got together, and we we're just like, what is the show? And we wrote the entire season in a day, which was just like, like a paragraph per episode. And we were just like, we had a few ideas up our sleeve, but nothing was fully formed. And we just had this crazy day, a caffeine-fueled day of writing this.
So good.
And sent it through the next day, being like, yep, here it is, as if we always had it. And they were like, the week after, they're like, yep, you've got it, you've got in. And we were like, amazed. And this was actually during COVID in the first year. So it was, we felt very fortunate enough to get an opportunity to continue working in our own way whilst a lot of people weren't able to. Yep. And we got to connect with a bunch of amazing Aussie writers over Zoom and people we still friends with today. That some really, really amazing projects came out of that. And we got to meet the big boy, Ron, on a Zoom. And I think I took a tiki screen grab that's somewhere in a folder that I'm like, here's Ron Howard, it's crazy. And
just me chilling with Ron and there's like 10 other people.
Exactly. I photoshopped them out. It's just me and him. I even photoshopped Mark out. And it was such a great experience to be like, oh, cool. Well, this company like validates our idea, because our idea was probably, Robots Inc. It's about AI. It's about the tech world. It's a bit more American than it is an Australian idea. Yeah. And we were kind of glad we got the validation there. And they called it our shaper, which is our mentor. So they partnered you with someone. We're talking about right fit before. We just couldn't have got a better fit with Kai Wu, who she had written on Hannibal, The Flash, a few American like network shows, and has just recently done a few shows with Amazon, and is going to be the showrunner on a new show with Casper getting rebooted. Cool. So she's an absolute gun.
Very well.
She's unreal, and she loved our idea. And we talk about feedback, getting feedback and writing a lot. She just like crystallized what makes a good collaborator, or someone who's giving notes, a good producer. And she goes, cool, I'm not here to make my show. I'm here to make your show better. And I was just like, this is great. We're going to get along. And, if she wanted to do Robots Inc., it would have been a completely different show, but she wasn't fighting for that. She was like, well, what do you guys want? And how can I tweak that for you?
That is phenomenal, because you have
very rare.
You hear so many stories, whether it's me, and I don't want anyone to think I'm an expert by any means. I am, no. But people that, have done all these shows I've had on the podcast, whether it's, and I'm not having a go at executives, but, you hear the stories.
Let's get stuck into them. Let's get
Listen here, I've got a bone to pick. And, you hear the stories of people just trying to sound smart or fighting for their job, or they need to feel like they need to say something, which is one thing. But even having it's just so far ahead thinking, forward thinking, where she knows that regardless of what happens, you've created the show, that it's coming from you. So let's go and like nurture that. It's not my show. Like, she can still come in and give great ideas. Yeah. But you don't hear about that often. And that annoys me because you need to like trust that creator. Yeah,
giving feedback and receiving feedback is a completely different art form to writing.
Yes, I used to suck at it.
Yeah, I think going through that the impact to what I call it, Imagine Impact Accelerator, we kind of learn like, cool. Well, we're going to get feedback from heaps of different people, and we need to almost, decide what's a good note, what are we going to take on. And it was a really interesting, like most notes are right. Sometimes suggestions on how to fix stuff might not align with what you want to do. And you got to decide on which ones to approach. And it was such an amazing experience as writers. They call it a boot camp. They call it like,
nice.
You're writing an episode of TV and a Bible and a pitch video in like
something in my eyes. So don't worry.
You're right. Yeah. You were crying about.
I'm so moved. Yeah.
So it was in a few weeks, and we had to do all these things, and it was like, we're going at the speed the industry goes at. So it was you need to be quick, you need to do turnaround, and there was like late night. Mark and I were fortunate; we were one of a few groups with a duo, so we could bounce stuff off each other and whatnot. A lot quicker. But it was such a great experience, and we came out with a pilot and a Bible and a pitch video, and I think we did attach a producer that wasn't the right fit. And someone who had plenty of runs on the board, but probably too many runs on the board because we weren't a priority. And it was one. Remember before I said trying to get people on email?
Yeah.
This person.
Who's Trace?
Yeah, it was hard to chase. And talk the talk in the Zoom and then never really put us in touch with any. We never pitched it to anyone, which was a bit of a shame. But we've still got the show and we're still trying to figure out another fit for it.
So that's really interesting. I've heard about this happening a lot where a lot of people, you've already got a whole fit along the way. And I know that we'll get into it in a little bit, but I had also a producer story and they're like, we can make this for you. This can happen. It's going to be the biggest show, blah, 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 blah. The ego doesn't work on me anymore because I did let down too many times.
Me too, yeah.
And it's really interesting because, you've got this whole fit, things are working and you're like, well, they've got runs on the board, they're so-and-so, and you can almost make, or at least for me, make excuses for their behavior because they're actually someone, they've done it and you can go, oh, maybe it's me, or all these little mind games because we're so desperate to get it out. Obviously, we want to do it in the right way and with integrity and blah, 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 blah. So was that a tough pill to swallow in that sense where...
Yeah, well, it dragged on probably a year of us being like, doing tweaks on the script, tweaks on the Bible, tweaks on the pitch video. And it seemed like every time we were just kind of continuing to make little tweaks and we're like, at some point we've just got to put it out there and see if someone wants it.
Yeah.
And it just got to a point where it was so hard to get a meeting because, they were very busy and they were doing cool shit. It would have been hard for them to kind of have so much success and then try and be like, get this thing out and really fight for it because they don't really need that. So we just eventually parted ways, which was a relief.
Tell me more about that.
Well, because to be honest, if we didn't part ways, we'd still probably be chasing those people for emails and trying to get meetings.
The stereotypical like boyfriend, girlfriend where, the guy's obsessed with the girl and the girl doesn't really answer and like, I know she's just busy and then you're trying and you're thinking about it all the time and...
Pretty much. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because, we came off this program with like on a high.
Yeah.
And we had this idea that we really wanted to sell to the world. And just never really, I think we kind of missed our opportunity to kind of cash in on coming out of this accelerator. And so we just kind of put the project on ice and now we're just, we're working on a few other TV ideas that we've kind of just had in the back burner that are kind of now risen to the top of our priority list. And, there's a bit more interest in those ones, but hopefully we just don't get into another scenario of like, I call it development purgatory.
Oh, okay. Tell
me.
You
just, you attach a producer or a production company and they're very busy and they just never put a meeting together to pitch the show because you're always tweaking it. And so I think at the time, Mark and I are at a point now where we're like, okay, how do we make sure that doesn't happen again?
Okay, this is fantastic because, I hear so many examples of agents and managers, for example, maybe from the acting side, and they might get this agent or manager at the top agency with all the connections, but if you're in their mind, number 20,
exactly,
you're not going to get anywhere. But then you might have the agent who's at a boutique place but just is in alignment with you and what you're doing.
Right fit.
So... But
also, they're going to prove themselves as well. Like someone who's a bit like more middle level is probably going to fight a bit harder for your idea. And that's the kind of people we're hoping to get into business with.
That's so interesting. So for example, I'll sprinkle what I've learned because this has been a massive experience for me.
Yeah.
You think that because when someone's in a big environment, they've got their big like A-lister that they're going to get stuff done. And kind of one of my takeaways, I've got like 200 is, right fit. And I think that's so important because it's with life, whether it's all relationships. Someone might be the best at something, but they're just not in the right fit for you. Very hard lesson for me. I'm working on it and I've learned a lot along the way. And I feel like that would be kind of a blessing in disguise, especially with how much projects you've got as well.
Absolutely. And you and I, big basketball fans. Yeah. I use sporting analogies so much. Mark actually doesn't watch sport and they go all over his head. That's and I'm giving you gold here, mate. But like right fit on a team, I look at it like that. You put the two best players together. If they can't play well together, the team's not going to work.
Exactly.
So it's like in terms of you realize that as high as people are in the industry, everyone's still fighting for scraps in a way. Like so as when we were doing our pitch video, we got our hands on a pitch video for an action movie with Ryan Gosling.
Oh, cool.
And he's in the pitch video pitching. And I'm like, hang on a second. Ryan Gosling is still pitching his ass off to get movies up.
Yeah, wow.
What hope do I have?
I wouldn't look at it that way, but, you know, it's an interesting, you know, everyone's trying to put their hand up and get something.
Absolutely.
And so I want to know from the moving forward side. So, you know, Ron Howard, you've done a lot of work. You guys are really passionate. You've done other stuff as well.
Yeah.
You got this producer. You don't get a no, but you don't get anything.
Yeah.
So with my example, which is a massive mistake on my end, it was like I had a locked in TV developmental deal. It was all done. We're just going over contract stuff.
So this is with a network?
Not a network.
Yeah.
It was a TV developmental deal in the sense of they're not going to promise that Netflix is going to buy it, but they're going to promise they can get a meeting because they've got a production company.
Great. Yeah.
And it was like a done deal in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship just kept on getting more sour. You know, I've spoken about this a little bit, but I might go a bit more in detail with you because I feel like you'll resonate with you. And I don't say this out of hate. I just want to preface this. This is a big relief, like you said, and I'm so grateful that it didn't happen. Yeah. I learned so much. Mm-hmm. I learned even from the legal side of how I want to work.
Contract, man. I had to read contracts. Surprisingly, that we Americans aren't into contracts as much as when we were there.
Their contracts suck compared to Australian contracts.
Oh, really? The ones we had were like, it was pretty chill.
Oh, really? Ours was, I ended up having to get an American lawyer, and my dad's he's not in the space, but he knows contracts.
Yeah. And
holy crap, what a bad contract. They would say things like, and this is the first red flag, I'm saying this to empower people. I feel very good about this. They'd say things like, just sign, we'll worry about it later. And
and also the other one they say is, it's standard. As soon as someone says that, I'm like,
oh no.
I'm going to check that. And also, absolutely advice for anyone out there, definitely get a lawyer to read over everything. That's what they're there for.
We had a few things in the contract. One, they kept on kind of change it. So I'm going to just say this. They were not going to pay me, and that didn't even make the top 10 of issues. I'll tell you about the payment in a sec.
Oh, my God.
One of them was that I would have to do all the work, basically most of the work that they would do. They would outsource work to me, and I'd be on hold for 3 years, plus an additional 2 years with no payment. And I'm like, but would you guys be doing work? Like, we're too busy, our time's worth too much. That's already a red flag. They weren't willing to put in any money, and they're a production company, which is already but I don't know, I'm new. So I'm saying,
hey, no, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah, no, but you know.
But you've got this big,
there's a team of 3 people, there's other people, the relationship slowly. Luckily, I had my dad, or even just having Mark or someone that you can discuss with. I got to realize this relationship's really toxic. But when you really want something, you kind of forget those, you just don't see those red flags.
Yep.
And this, I have to go over the contract, but there was things like they might not even give me created by credits. They might not even use me as a writer. It depends. We can't promise. They decided they were going to film it. We were going to maybe do it in America because the production company's there. They then, without telling me, we're going to do this in London. Just even small communication things like that.
Yeah. That's not a small communication thing. That's a different contract.
I don't know why I said small. Because it's been a little while. I can't remember, but there were 10 things where, and our lawyer was the greatest. Have you ever heard you say something nice about a lawyer? He was mentoring me. He's like, this is what's normal. This is what's normal.
Yeah.
If you want to have a chat, it's free of charge.
Really?
Normally there's maybe one red flag. You've got 10. I'd never tell anyone what to do, but just beware. And
that's great to have an ally like that.
Oh, I mean, especially in a thing where we see lawyers as kind of the enemy, to actually have someone else an advocate. Ended up seeing this team, I won't give anything away, they were so nice that then as things were dragging on, you got to see a really demonic side. I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean in some evil aspects where just sign it or scream.
It's all about
or
the money,
yell.
not about the person. It's,
They removed the one, they want to make money. That's fine. It's not even about that. But they just didn't give a shit about people.
Yeah.
And so we saw the way that they spoke to our lawyer. and a lawyer asked a question, and they pretty much screamed at him in the Zoom and like speak when spoken to, and we're like, I can't work with someone like this.
No, that's.
And then they would like kind of like play games with us. And luckily I had my dad, and my dad's not in industry, but I don't say this, there's no bias. He's a genius, and he could, because he does contracts, he could see what they were doing, and they'd be like, can you actually do this? And essentially we think they were trying to steal my IP for as little cost as possible. And they probably would have got it made. I reckon they would have made big bucks on it.
And you wouldn't have got a cent.
I wouldn't have got paid.
Yeah.
They said that I could have been hold for 5 years. They said that I could have got paid only once it got made, but they expected me to work on it for a minimum of 3 years, full time.
And they're probably doing this with about 10 or 20 other creators at the time, and all they need is one of these shows to get up, and that's how they make their money.
Make money and not pay anyone else along the way.
Yeah, that's so disheartening that you worked so hard, you had this idea, you finally got what you think was the big break, and then it just turned into a really it's a learning experience, but unfortunately not the end goal you'd hoped for.
Yes, but I say this with a smile, and hopefully you can feel like I'm not sad about it. I am so happy I had this experience, because it's not a no, it's a no with them. I can still do this. I've won an award on this. I haven't actually pitched it to anyone or got out. It was just to them. They came to me.
Great.
And anyway, to kind of like wrap it up, there was just so many red flags, and they were getting so aggressive. And, you know, as I said, payment, like I will do it for the cheapest amount. I just need to live, but you can't live for 3 years not doing anything. And luckily it didn't work out, and the relief. But one of the key things that I did, because I thought it was a done deal and I was naive, I put everything but the podcast on hold. I didn't write anything, and that's on me. And I'm happy to share this because I think it's important.
I think we did a similar thing. We took the foot off the pedal.
Yeah.
Expecting some, expecting to spare, like we didn't want to start anything because we might need to prep for a meeting with someone soon.
I might need to move to London.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting just because something's there. And I genuinely thought it was a done deal. And luckily the relationship deteriorated in the sense of we got to see we're doing it our way, don't talk. And it just, that's not that common. But just identifying red flags, and then I also found that I had to justify their behavior, which is already a different can of worms. But essentially, one of the key lessons was just because you think you've got something doesn't mean you've got it. And I put the foot off the pedal, like you said. Yeah. And I think that was at least 6 months of like very little writing.
Yep.
And it just wasn't smart. But I'm happy I did all of that. I'm happy I went through all of that.
And then you will find the right partner, the right fit soon, and it's just going to be like, oh, this is how it should have been. And I'm so glad that I didn't go down that path or didn't just sign it and wait for later.
Yes.
Made the right call there.
Or just like I wasn't too desperate, but we both want a TV show. Oh, I can get a TV show. And I think kind of like the moral for me, and people take what they want, is that just because something's an offer, like you said, if it's not the right fit, you can walk away.
Yep.
There will be other opportunities. Luckily, like I have that semi-award that I told you about. I haven't pitched it. I feel very confident I'm going to get that made. But it's interesting along the way. Like, you talked about not doing that much. So what was that like period like where you thought you're going to get the show and then you're not working that much?
Yeah, well, we thought we were definitely going to get meetings with some big companies in America, and that was exciting. And then it was kind of like the writing was on the wall a little bit, being like, I don't know if this. It's not that the person was talking shit, but it's the fact that we weren't a priority, and it was kind of like, let's turn our focus to other ideas we've got in the meantime. A friend of mine talks about almost like all your ideas on pots on an oven where you get to simmer them up and simmer them down depending on where the interest is.
Yeah.
And I've butchered that analogy. But essentially like, cool, well, that's just on the back burner, basically.
Yeah.
And then let's write these other ideas and try and get them up in the meantime. And then, so what, the only unfortunate thing is kind of like, you need to be, you kind of only as exciting as your latest project. And then you kind of need to get a bit more interest in you before you can then dust that old project off and kind of throw it out again. Yeah. So it's kind of like, well, we need now, hopefully with the followers, we can kind of then, that's a little key into the door of a few production companies to be like, hey, well, we got this show.
And it was it looked like a high level production.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, we were blessed with the best crew and just like it was the chillest set. Like it was.
You guys would create it. It starts from the top.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I think we really put the right people together to help make it, and just people that trusted our vision and also made our vision better and stronger. So it was such a great experience as directors and producers, and I acted in it as well. There was a lot going on, and I always felt pretty confident that everyone around me like kind of knew what they were doing, and it was awesome.
There's one scene, there were many, but one where I spat out my drink. You're like you're doing like the news reporting, and then there was an Asian lady who like
Susanna
pushes you. Yep. What's her name?
Susanna,
and then she like hisses at you, and you're still on the ground. Yes. I did not expect that. That was so funny. But anyway, it's very funny. We're going to put it in the episode notes so people can check it out.
Thank you so much. Yeah, she was great. That was actually me and Susanna's first ever stunt. We had a stunt man on set who talked us through her kneeing me in the gut and me falling over. He was there for other reasons. We were burning stuff.
Yeah.
But he was on set for that, and that was just a fun little to pretend to be a little action hero for a second.
That's so funny. As you can tell, I'm super, super ripped. So if you ever need a stunt person,
absolutely, absolutely, like Hemsworth style.
Well, actually, on that, I don't know why this just springs to mind. I used to do Krav Maga, and
which is the most intense martial art.
I wasn't good at it, but we had this one guy, and this sort of springs to mind. Very small guy.
Yeah, his
biceps were as big as my wrists, and he looked like a guy you could just push over. I'm wearing full gear,
right?
And I've even got the the kicking pad.
Yeah.
And he just does a punch I couldn't even see through the pad into my gut. And I'm like on the floor. Like I've had people destroy me, but I've got full equipment and just smash the shit out of me. So if I can do that from a Krav Maga expert, I can take a knee in the...
Hopefully there's footage of that we can also put in the podcast.
Just that'll be the comparison. Intro. Yeah, that was amazing.
That's unreal.
And so in terms of making stuff happen, because this is really interesting... very long story short, my first show I wrote, I actually pitched it to someone at Princess.
Yep.
And she gave me such good feedback. She's like...
They're great. Yeah, they're great at Princess.
Yeah, I don't have too much to do with them. But essentially, she didn't even care about the script. First thing I've written was garbage. It's terrible. I'm still working on it now, and it's been quite a few years. But she said, you just got to write. So although she didn't give me a yes, she gave me great feedback in terms of... You're going to be better at this if you keep on writing. Like, have the mindset you're going to be doing this for 10 years. So I actually wrote, I've written quite a few scripts then, but at that stage, I think I wrote 2 or 3 other scripts, nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Came back to that script, made that so much better. And it was such good advice in that just because, you might not think you've got a path now, if you're doing other things, it actually impacts everything.
Absolutely. And with the Ron Howard thing, our writing... just dramatically improved going through that, and then writing the followers. Obviously, it's a bit more jokey and a bit more slapsticky, but just the ability to smash out a script quicker and notice the problems quicker to fix, which was great. And then it just really helped us because when you're a writer, you're not just writing scripts; you're also writing like pitch bibles and stuff. You got to write these. For anyone that doesn't know, they're these 10 or 12 page documents that go through.
Everything.
The
themes, the characters, the episode notes.
The tone, the structure, the style, everything, audience. And I feel like as we're getting better writers, that we're getting better at writing those Bibles as well. Because those Bibles really help you figure out who the character is and what their flaw is, what their obstacle is,
definitely,
and what their journey is. And you're like, as soon as you, because sometimes when you're writing, you're kind of trying to figure that out sometimes. Yeah. And doing a Bible kind of helps you fast track that.
I agreed. It's kind of like a massive mind map of what's the show actually going to be about. And I always thought as a writer, you just write the one script and that's it. But first of all, it makes you a better writer, but there's also the business side.
Yeah.
And I never even thought about that as, you're now working on now.
Yeah. I mean, we do too many Bibles. We probably,
nice.
We kind of sometimes start with a Bible other than a script, but I think we probably need to get back into scripting now out of the followers and start writing some more.
So what happens now with the followers? So you've got this, it's amazing, it's on YouTube. Are you looking at avenues to create? Because to me, it looks like it could very easily translate into like a longer form sitcom, for example.
Yeah, and that was the idea. The idea was always going to be a proof of concept.
So
like putting a narrative murder mystery on YouTube is a challenging thing. YouTube is one-off videos unless you're watching like a vlogger or an entertainment piece.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get people to come back and interested in a story like people would on a Netflix or on a streaming platform. It's just not the right platform for it. But we kind of wanted to demonstrate that A, we can connect with an audience, and B, that we could do a narrative thing, because essentially we're trying to connect with a YouTube audience, but also a producer or a network could see, oh, okay, they could do TV if they wanted to, or something like that. So basically the idea is that, so the character, so it's a murder mystery about a wellness cult, and the documentarian Charlie, he's essentially goes to live with them and all hell breaks loose. The way we've kind of structured the TV version is Charlie, the character, does the wellness cult in the YouTube series, but he could do anything and go anywhere, almost like a Louis Theroux character. And the TV version we're actually writing about at the moment is him going to live with UFO conspiracy theorists, which we're very excited about. So the idea is whatever is in the zeitgeist, and that is very much in the zeitgeist right now.
Oh, they just had the
Senate inquiry.
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
Of course, I'm all over it. I'm loving it. The truth is out there.
Finally.
Exactly. And so the idea is, cool, here's the wellness cult, and then we could see Charlie in different aspects here and that.
So it's like season 1 could be this.
Yeah.
That's a really, and it's a hot topic, and you can also...
Yeah, and whatever the hot topic is in a year or so, that's season 2 or whatever.
That's very marketable as well.
It's just obviously... Anthology series are very hard, but that's kind of where we're at with that. So we're trying to... I would be happy to stay at the wellness cult if anyone likes it enough. It's very What We Do in the Shadows style.
Yeah.
And it would be a fun place, and we do have ideas if we go down that route. But at the moment, it's kind of like, well, let's see if anyone's interested in a longer form.
That's very interesting. So do you have a process now of putting it out to people?
Yeah, so we have a few people interested in seeing a Bible. So that's what we've been putting together. And then I think we're just kind of, turn our focus to marketing the series so we can get some more views behind it and some more people around it. This podcast will help.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
You're going to get tens of millions of...
Amazing. This is what we need.
Have you... sorry for cutting off. Have you spoken to the Auntie Donna boys? I feel like it's a similar... they got their Netflix show.
That's true. I mean, but they're just genius comedians. I feel like their advice is... I feel like they would give great advice, but only they could do what they did.
They're so niche.
And I listened to the episode with Mark about their Netflix show, and it's incredible. They built a really good fan base, and I think that's where Mark and I are probably at now, where we're going to try and replicate that and try and maybe build a bit more of an online fan base so we can be a bit more, palatable for someone to come and give us some money.
It's very interesting how this all works. We can go a few ways.
So I can pick it up from that. I don't think I answered that question well anyway. I feel like, we do, I kind of know a few of the Auntie Donna boys in a somewhat friendly sense. We love them. We're big fans. And I feel like they're just doing them boys and the Rucka Rucka boys. I'm not sure if you know them.
No.
So they came out, they were an online, they're two brothers and they do stunts and crazy.
Are they the New Zealand? Oh,
No, they're from Adelaide.
Then who am I thinking of?
What
a stupid question.
You were thinking of Taika Waititi.
No, I always get who's that actor? I'm like, I cannot help you.
So looking at Auntie Donna and Rucka Rucka, both started on YouTube in Australia. Both grew a following. Both were supported through Screen Australia with few initiatives. Auntie Donna have gone off and done their Netflix show and their ABC show and their live shows, and they're fucking amazing and killing it. The Rucka Rucka boys have just... sold a film to A24, which came out this week in Australia, and it's going to be the biggest horror film of the year. And it's just...
In Australia or in the world?
In the world. This film is getting buzz. I can't wait to see it. They're fantastic filmmakers. And it's really great to see these two groups that started on YouTube and that broke through the mainstream. So we definitely look to what those guys are doing and... respect it, love it, and we'll try and do our version of that in our own way.
I think it's such a nice story, hearing you and hearing them and Auntie Donna as well, that, you talk about the mainstream. We think, the model to me was always painted, you work as the guy giving coffees to everyone on set.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, maybe you're the assistant to someone, and then maybe, you're like PA to someone, and then 10 years later, maybe you get the opportunity to show a script.
Absolutely.
We don't need to do it that way.
No.
And you guys...
You just need to suck Harvey Weinstein. I mean, no, sorry, you get a YouTube channel and then you
know what's wild? And I don't know if I could say this, but I was watching Harvey Weinstein videos of so many celebrities thanking him and saying, you are the greatest, you're a mensch. And it's like a 10-minute video of all these people. And I'm like, yeah.
Wow. That's that's a whole...
it's a whole, moving on. So
Moving on. It's fantastic to see that it is possible that, these YouTube creators can break through. But I think what it is, okay, I look at American comedy. You look at SNL. Most amazing comedians have come out of SNL. That probably stopped happening, kind of around the time YouTube came out.
Interesting.
Because I think a lot of people, all the unique voices are building audiences online.
Yeah.
And you've got this wealth, because I mean, I don't know, Pete Davidson's a bit of a different cat for different reasons. But in terms of all your big creators that are coming up, I think they're all starting online. And in Australia specifically, it's Rucka Rucka, it's Auntie Donna, it's Super Wog. It's all those kind of people that are breaking through that way. And I think it's great that anyone in the country could just...
And around the world,
absolutely.
It's also that you don't need permission, because when I was first starting, I was like, oh, I need this and this and this, even though I'm not doing it, but I am, but like going out and making it, you're doing this, and you're a perfect example of getting a team together and actually making it. You don't need a high production level to say you can do this. And that's how you've gotten yourself to be seen. And I think that's so important, because even just like directing, back in the day, getting directing spots is impossible, but you've directed so many things, whether it was a commercial or just your mates or the high-level stuff that you're doing now. It's just...
I talk to my actor friends all the time. The crazy thing is I act more than some of my actor friends because I just put myself in my own work.
That's so good.
They're much better actors than me.
Yeah.
But I'm on screen because I'm like, well, I could just write it for myself and Mark, and it's easy. I don't have to organize a date. I don't have to organize a meeting.
Yeah.
And I think... my advice to anyone is just go out and do your own things. And like you said, the 10 videos that you probably would have released if you knew how to edit, we released our 10 shit videos.
Yeah.
And like they were shit. And you can go back on YouTube if I haven't hidden them and watch how shit they are. And I think you got to make shit stuff. And then eventually you'll get better and better and better. And you don't want to be thinking you're going to come out with like
gold,
Schindler's List, Jurassic Park. You did them in the same year, by the way.
Oh, really?
Crazy.
No way.
You're not going to come out and just blow up like that. So I think even looking at the Rucka Rucka boys who have released their first feature film, but they've been grinding on YouTube for 10 years.
Good for them. Those are such nice stories. And with like Priceless Productions, you mentioned that's with Max. Mm-hmm. That also gives you another avenue to do other things and works with people as well. Yeah,
that's been great. So Max came to me and wanted to start this comedy production company.
Interesting.
Which was like, I think I said no. And then he came back to me again in a month and I said, whatever, let's do it. So him and Leah, his partner, and we just, we managed to make a living off making comedy videos for brands that were like kind of happy to do something a little left field and happy not to do ads, just happy to make content.
I wouldn't even call it left field. To me, that's I've seen quite a few. In fact, I've seen everything that you have on your... To me, that's like so engaging.
Great.
And
thank you.
I was like, this is, especially for some of the brands that you work with, like a lot of the brands or the ads that I see, it's like black and white and it's like someone in the distance and then they're like Pepsi. And I'm like, what does that have to do with?
Yeah.
But it's like the...
It's a good idea, actually.
Yeah. It's like Mr. Plow from The Simpsons. Did you used to watch
Mr. Plow, that's my name.
Mr. Plow, the ads, how it had like, it's just like a woman with like a towel and the curtains are open, the wind, and then they drop like a snow globe. It was like, Mr. Plow.
Yeah. No, but we learned so much from doing that. As producers and working with, we have notes. You have clients that have notes and you need to figure out which notes are good notes and which notes are bad notes. And it is their brand after all. And we got really good at working in brand identity and making sure, this has to reach a particular target audience. And we had to be like, cool, well, we can't just do comedy. We need to nail that. And that kind of worked. And that really helped.
But that to me, that's that's almost, I'm not comparing, but to me that like if you're a production agency and you see that you can work with the client where you might not even like the client, but you've been able to deliver something that's in alignment with their brand, it means you can do it for other things.
Absolutely.
And when I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting because, we all want to go and do our own thing. First of all, we also need money to do other stuff, and you're doing it in an environment where you can actually like do what you want. But to work with other people and other ideas and get these notes, that's kind of what it's about.
Absolutely. And to still have fun doing it. Like,
yes.
And, some of the clients weren't fun. And those videos aren't on my website. But the ones that are, like we had so this is a funny story. I hate saying that's a funny story because it may not be a funny story.
It will be a funny story.
But so Max and I, through the priceless stuff and through Max's connections, he got us a job at Fox Footy.
Yes.
Where a few days a week we do, we're creative producers there creating content for them. And
awesome.
Never have I worked at such a great environment to make comedy.
Cool.
Because they're new to comedy. They're like, they do sport, they do stats. And they're so trusting in what Max and I can bring. It's such a great environment and it's just been so much fun. And even to the point where a show we worked on last year, Best on Ground, we'd have a comedy skit ready and we'd try and show one of the producers like, no, I'll watch it live. And we're like,
whoa,
what if we ruined Nathan Buckley's career with this skit? Someone should watch it, and then they watch it. They're like, it's fun. And it was just so such a great environment to...
So the trust.
Yeah, there's a lot of trust there. And we're just having an amazing time there at the moment.
Well, you've got... And I'm not trying to suck up to you. I think this is really important from like an artist and filmmaker's journey. You're doing your stuff. You've also got the other aspects where you're working, collaborating, not only with your with Mark, but other people. And you're doing it all right. I'm not doing this. It's not a comparison, but especially from a director and producer point of view, you are hitting all the right marks. I'm very impressed, and it's high quality. Yeah,
it's very, very lovely for you to say. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh, no problem. So what? Oh, actually, one thing before we do a rapid fire segment.
Oh dear. Okay.
I found this really interesting. There's 1,000 things I found interesting, but you basically got a free degree from the Melbourne Business School for entrepreneurship.
It's very true.
I'd love to hear a bit about that and what you learned and how it's helped you.
My very first gig doing video stuff. So it was my best mate at Boost. Everything started at Boost.
We should get sponsorship.
We should get shout out to Boost Juice, Strawberry Squeeze, Mango Magic. $1 extra for a water, I believe. It was back in the day anyway. It's probably gone up. So his mum's partner was a lecturer at the Melbourne Business School doing the entrepreneurship course. And they needed someone to film a lecture. And I needed some extra cash. And it was like $30 or $40 or whatever a session. It was nothing, but I didn't even have a camera. So I borrowed Max's camera to do it. And I kind of just did it as a job. And then when I got in, so David Austin, the lecturer, incredibly charismatic, kind, wonderful human. He's the best lecturer that I've ever witnessed in a class. And all the students that have gone through his things would attest to that. He's just a wonderful human, and he just gets entrepreneurship. He's worked consulting for gigantic companies and just knows how it works. And it was very early on I realized, oh, hang on a second, I'm not here as a job to film stuff. I am here to learn. And I really feel like I got to learn amazing life advice, but also amazing business advice and entrepreneurship advice, which is essentially what a filmmaker is. We are all entrepreneurs in a way because we all run our own business.
Yep.
We're all looking for opportunities with ideas. We're all trying to get funding and all work within teams. There's so many parallels there. And I just soaked it up for I think I did 2 or 3 semesters. So I've really, really got to...
Free school and you just needed to hold a camera.
Exactly. And, it was my first camera job. So obviously I was half out of focus and I stuffed up the audio every now and then.
Oh, so how did you...
Just editing, mate.
It all comes back to editing.
All comes back to me. Editing is me fixing my problems.
That's so wild. So what's actually involved when you're because this is a lecture, they normally still, does he move around and animate? Do you follow?
So it was crazy. So it was it was a classroom environment and there was about 6 or 7 tables. So he was walking around. So I was it's like TMZ in there. I was getting right up there. I was in people's faces because I was obviously also shooting the very impressive documentary. At the time, I was kind of,
So it all helps.
all kind of everything helps. I think everything you do, I think, say yes to everything until I feel like, you can move on to the next stage. And that was an unreal experience. And I still chat to Dave, and he's a lovely dude.
Cool. And now you've basically got your degree or whatever it's called as well.
Pretty much.
It's a very good lesson. Like everything helps everything, whether you're like a cleaner or an accountant or a barista, there's aspects that you can put in. Absolutely. It's a great lesson. So what we're going to do now is a rapid fire segment.
Let's do it.
So the first thing that springs to mind, but I always derail them. So please take your time.
Is this like a one sentence answer, or are we just see what happens?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's not like a tick, one of those like time bombs.
Okay.
What are you most proud of?
Don't know.
I start with the hardest ones.
Yeah. What am I most proud of? I'm most proud of the last thing I made.
What's been your special ingredient to work all these years?
I like making people laugh.
What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Work. Still, actually, no, I'll watch basketball.
You also said you went for a run, so you do.
It's true. I was working there. I was just thinking of ideas while running.
Do you get ideas from that?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Where do you find you get your best ideas?
Shower.
Interesting.
In the morning, I'll have a long shower, and then all these ideas will come out, and then I'll grab my phone and put them in, and then I'll almost ruin my phone because it's so wet. Yeah.
You know what you should get? One of those waterproof pads.
I should absolutely get one of them.
I've never been much of a shower person. Oh, sorry.
I did smell that when I walked in.
It's been a few weeks. That's so interesting. What keeps you motivated?
What keeps me motivated? I think working in a team environment and, not wanting to let someone down, but also trying to work with someone and, make something together.
Do you have a philosophy on life you follow? Could be a sentence. It could be something bigger.
Okay, I did a documentary on a great mate of mine who was a rapper, and I'm going to steal his philosophy.
Nice.
He was trying to make it as an indie rapper, and we made a series that was called Good Things Work Out. And I thought that was an interesting thing, and I think you can paraphrase that in terms of like, if you work hard and you're a nice person, good things will happen.
Very true. Biggest regret?
Biggest regret? No regrets. I probably could have listened more at uni.
Couldn't we all?
Yeah, I didn't really enjoy my time there or do anything. I wasn't really creative. I didn't make anything. And
you did a film
at uni?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a digital media degree, an arts degree.
Yeah.
But I could think about taking that more seriously, but to be honest, no. I don't think I have any regrets really, other than maybe I worked freelance for ages doing a lot of behind the scenes videos, and then I eventually quit that to start the priceless stuff. My regret might have been not starting that stuff earlier.
And also with university, I know we can talk about this for a while, so we'll keep it short. A lot of people now are saying that you don't need to go to university to do filmmaking, whereas back in the day, people were like, you have to do this. Whereas you're the example of where you actually gone and created so much stuff. So what do you say to people that maybe feel like they have to go to university?
Do not go to university. If you want to be a lawyer or an accountant, go to university. If you want to make films, go make films. I didn't learn a thing at university.
I didn't either, and I did accounting.
Don't go to university if you want to be an accountant.
Yep.
No, absolutely. Go on YouTube and go and get a camera and make stuff.
Very good advice. What would you do if you knew you could not fail?
I already know that.
What do you mean?
I already know I can't fail, so it'll be fine. I'll be good. No, I think it'll happen at some point. So I just got to
and
keep at it.
And what do you? So we've talked about like the validation side, and you've mentioned how success is in that you're just working with people that you love and creating stuff. So is that if your career like ended today, would you be happy? What's kind of
I think if I threw my CV in front of myself as a 15, 16-year-old when he first made his first film, I think he'd be like, he'd be stoked.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm very proud of you. I feel like a
Appreciate
proud
it.
dad, even though you're slightly older than me.
Dad.
Last question before we ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you.
Yeah.
What is the one question I should have asked you?
Oof. So that's a good question. We've covered so much.
We have.
I think you've done a great job.
Stop it.
I think you're on a great podcast. You're on a tight ship.
Thank
Great
you.
interviewer. I think we're all good.
Thank you. That is very kind of you. Before we go, how can people follow you and check out all the cool stuff you're doing?
Yeah, so we'll go watch the followers on YouTube, which is under the Goodall and Gallagher channel.
Yep.
Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. It's just luke.goodall. Or have lukegoodall.com if you want to check out any of the work that we talked about today.
Cool. That will be in the episode notes. So please, everyone, let Luke know how good the followers is. I really loved it. And thank you. You are such a good speaker. And you're very empowering. This was awesome. And it's very inspiring.
Helps that there's a great interviewer on the other side. You asked great questions. I've had a lot of fun. This has been great fun.
Awesome.
I love Luke's take on if he had to stop his career for whatever reason, he'd be able to look back, reflect, and be content. Often in life, when we set big goals, for example, one of Luke's is to have a TV show, we can look back and think that we are failures for not achieving the specific goal or dream. The message here is that everything takes its own time. Luke brings it back to reality and encourages us to reflect on our journeys, to enjoy the process, and try and have fun during the project's evolution. My takeaway is simply be in the moment and don't let other goals paralyze us from overwhelm. In other words, enjoy your creation. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. Choose a career you love and you'll never go to work. Dennis Waitley.
Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.